Hey everyone, welcome back. You sent over some really interesting stuff about soulmates and relationships, and we're going to dive deep into all that today.
Sounds fascinating.
It is. We're going to be checking out Turn Your Mate into Your Soulmate by Arielle Ford,
Okay.
which you're really into right now.
Yes, it's really interesting. I'm really enjoying this book.
Awesome. So the goal today is to figure out what Ford is really trying to say, and separate the soulmate facts from the fiction.
Okay.
And hopefully give you guys some practical stuff you can actually use in your relationships.
Yeah, that's what we're all about.
Exactly. So Ford actually starts out by busting some of those common myths we hear all the time about soulmates.
Okay.
We always hear about, soulmates being this instant, effortless bliss,
Right.
like you found your missing piece. But Ford thinks soulmate relationships actually take work.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of refreshing to hear that.
Right.
Not sugarcoating it.
Totally. And get this, Ford actually used manifestation techniques to find her husband.
Oh, wow.
But she is totally upfront about the fact that even soulmate relationships have their tough moments.
That's real.
Yeah, she calls them fires and triggers.
Those are good words for it, I think.
Yeah, right.
When you think about it.
It definitely makes you realize that no relationship is going to be perfect.
Right.
Even the ones that feel meant to be.
Absolutely.
But here's something I thought was super interesting about it. Ford actually believes that the person who is most capable of loving you deeply might already be in your life.
That's a cool thought.
I know, right?
Makes you think about all those connections you have.
Yeah. Like, what if your soulmate is closer than you think?
Exactly.
So it's not all about, fireworks and instant bliss.
Right.
So then how do you actually cultivate that deeper connection with someone?
Good question.
Well, Ford talked a lot about understanding the differences between men and women.
Makes sense.
And she has this hilarious story about a wedding she went to in India
Okay.
where a guru is giving advice to the groom. And the guru tells the groom that anytime his wife asks for anything,
Oh, I remember this.
his answer should always be, okay, honey.
I love that.
Right?
It's so simple.
I know.
But profound in a way.
Totally. And she uses this story to kind of make a point about communication.
Let's see.
Because men and women sometimes approach things in different ways.
For sure.
And it's super important to understand those differences if you want to build a really strong relationship.
It's true. It's like you're speaking different languages sometimes.
Exactly. And she ties this into John Gray's idea of men needing to feel like heroes.
Okay.
Have you heard of that?
Yeah, definitely.
So the idea is that guys are often motivated by feeling needed and providing for their partners.
Whether it's, practical things.
Yeah. Or just emotional support.
It's about feeling valued
Totally.
and capable.
Exactly. So instead of criticizing or demanding stuff, Ford suggests that we frame our requests in a way that makes our partner feel good.
So it's like, you're acknowledging their strengths.
Yes. And making them feel appreciated.
And appreciate it.
Right. And she gives some really interesting examples in the book.
Like what?
So there's this one woman, Allison, who was having an issue with her husband always leaving the toilet seat up.
Oh, yeah. That's a classic.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But instead of nagging him about it, she explained, how putting the seat down would prevent accidents.
Okay.
And how that would make him her hero.
Oh, that's a smart approach.
I know, right? And guess what? It worked.
I love that.
Isn't that cool?
It's like, instead of getting into a fight,
you turn it into a positive.
you're actually making them feel good about doing what you want.
Exactly.
And it gets the job done.
Totally. And she also suggests that when you're asking for something,
Yeah.
you frame it in a way that focuses on how it will make you feel.
Okay.
So for example, instead of saying, take me to the movies,
Right.
you could say something like, spending quality time with you at the movies would make me so happy.
Oh, that's good.
Right. It's like you're still getting your needs met, but you're also making him feel good about fulfilling them.
And you're being honest about your feelings,
Exactly.
which is always a good thing.
So it's all about understanding your partner's emotional needs and communicating with them in a way that makes sense to them.
I like that. That's a good takeaway.
Now get ready for this next part because this one really got me thinking.
Okay.
Okay, so Ford argues that we all have these stories from our past that are kind of shaping our beliefs and behaviors,
Oh, yeah.
even unconsciously.
It's like we're running on autopilot sometimes.
Yeah, and these stories can really hold us back, especially in relationships.
I can see that.
She even shares a story about herself.
Really?
Yeah, so when she was a kid, she was laughed at for speaking up in temple.
Oh, no.
And that one experience created a lifelong fear of public speaking for her.
Wow, that's powerful.
I know, right?
How one event can have such a lasting impact.
But it wasn't until she reframed that story, like recognized her courage for speaking up, that she was finally able to overcome it.
So it's about changing the narrative.
Yeah. It's like we have the power to rewrite those old stories.
And create new ones.
Exactly. And she also talks about this woman named Jill, who initially broke up with her fiancé, Ray, because she was judging his lifestyle.
Interesting.
But later on, she realized that her judgments were based on her own, limiting beliefs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she ended up shifting her perspective to see Ray's positive qualities.
Right.
And they actually got back together.
That's right.
I know, right? And it just makes you wonder, how many relationships end because people get stuck in those negative narratives.
Right.
It's a good reminder to check ourselves.
Yeah, look at our own baggage.
Exactly. What beliefs are we holding on to that might be preventing us from experiencing a deeper connection?
Like those beliefs become these self-fulfilling prophecies.
Totally.
If you believe you're not worthy of love, you're going to act in ways that push love away.
Yeah. And the cool thing is we can actually reframe those stories.
Right.
To open up to new possibilities.
It's about taking control of your own narrative.
Exactly. Okay. Ready for something a little woo-woo?
Always.
Let's talk about sacred contracts and soulful synchronicity.
I love this stuff.
Okay. So Ford dives into this idea that before we're even born, our souls are making agreements with other souls.
Like pre-life contracts?
Yeah, designed for growth and fulfilling a shared mission.
That's fascinating.
I know, right? And she actually has a really cool example of this with Deepak Chopra.
No way.
Yes, they've always had this super strong connection.
I can see that.
And Deepak actually revealed that he believes they were siblings in a past life.
Whoa, that's wild.
I know, and get this, their work together actually fulfilled a prediction from a psychic reading that Ford had years before.
No way. Really?
Yeah.
I love these kinds of stories.
Me too. It makes you think about all the connections and how everything might be connected in ways we don't even understand.
Absolutely. Are we just puppets on strings?
Right. Or are we co-creating our reality?
Who knows? It's a mystery.
And there are so many stories out there about people having these seemingly random encounters that turned into soulmate connections. There's this one about Lana and David who met online.
Okay.
After Lana Googled mystic author, which was on her soulmate wish list.
No way.
And they ended up sharing this mission to create a new Earth paradigm.
That's amazing.
I know, right? And then there's Lynn and Bob, who met in a stalled elevator.
Oh, wow.
And they just felt this instant connection.
That's so romantic.
I know, and despite some initial obstacles, they ended up together.
Love that.
It really makes you think about all the chance encounters we have every day.
Yeah.
What if some of those random meetings actually hold a deeper meaning?
What if they do? It makes you look at the world in a whole new way.
Exactly. It's maybe we're not really in control.
Or maybe we are.
Who knows? But it's definitely something to think about.
For sure.
All right, so let's get real for a sec. Not every couple is going to agree on everything. There are going to be those things where you just don't see eye to eye those irreconcilable differences, as Ford calls them.
It's like those things that just bug you no matter what you do.
Exactly. And it's not really about finding someone who agrees with you on every single thing.
No.
It's more about learning how to manage those differences in a way that's constructive.
Yeah. You got to pick your battles.
Right. And Ford actually compares it to running a marathon.
A marathon.
You wouldn't just show up for a marathon without any training, would you?
Definitely not.
Well, relationships kind of need that same consistent effort to build up those skills for the long run.
So it's like training for a relationship marathon.
Exactly. You got to be prepared for those inevitable bumps in the road.
Makes sense.
And she even brings up research from John Gottman.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of him.
Who found that even the happiest couples still have problems.
You mean like even soulmates have issues?
Yeah. It's not about avoiding conflict altogether.
Right.
It's more about how you handle those disagreements.
So communication is key.
Totally. That's where having some good tools can really come in handy.
So what kind of tools does Ford suggest?
Well, one that stood out to me was the Imago dialogue.
The what?
Imago dialogue. It's a 5-step process, but the main idea is to really practice empathetic listening.
Empathetic listening.
Yeah. So it's about making sure your partner feels like they're being heard and understood.
Oh, okay.
Which can really help to de-escalate a situation.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you feel heard,
Right.
you're less likely to get defensive.
Exactly. And I think that's a valuable skill in any relationship, not just romantic ones.
Definitely.
And she also reminds us about the importance of understanding your partner's love language.
Oh yeah, those are important.
Have you taken the quiz?
I have. Years ago.
It's a good reminder.
Yeah.
It's all about figuring out how your partner best receives love.
So you can show them you care in a way that they actually appreciate.
Yes. And, Ford doesn't stop there. She also talks about managing your own emotional state,
Ooh, that's a good one.
especially when you're feeling triggered or overwhelmed.
Yeah, because sometimes it's like you just lose it.
Totally. And she mentioned some interesting things like tapping and a technique called the heart lock-in.
A hard lock in. What's that?
It's from the Heart Math Institute,
Okay.
and it involves focusing on heart-centered feelings,
Like what kind of feelings?
like love, appreciation, gratitude.
So it's like intentionally trying to feel good.
Yeah. And the idea is that by shifting your focus to those positive emotions, you create more coherence and emotional resilience.
So you're less likely to react in a negative way.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Right. And she also talks about an ancient Hawaiian practice called Ho'oponopono.
I've heard of that one.
Have you? It's about using these specific phrases to heal emotional wounds and release negativity.
Yeah, like taking responsibility for your own stuff
Exactly.
instead of blaming other people.
And that seems to be a big theme in her work.
What do you mean?
Well, it's not about trying to change your partner or blaming them for your problems. It's about looking inward and understanding your own role in the relationship.
So it's about self-awareness
Exactly.
and taking ownership.
Okay, so while Ford acknowledges the challenges of relationships, she also celebrates the joys of a soulmate connection.
Of course.
And one concept that she introduces is wabi-sabi love.
Wabi-sabi love. I like the sound of that.
It's a Japanese concept about finding beauty and perfection in imperfection.
So it's like accepting those quirks and imperfections that make your partner unique.
Yeah, instead of trying to change them.
I love that.
Right.
It takes the pressure off.
Totally. And she tells this really cute story about a woman named Diane,
Okay.
who was always annoyed by the poppy seeds that her husband Jerry left on the kitchen floor.
Poppy seeds.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But one day she had this realization that if there were no more poppy seeds, it would mean there was no more Jerry.
Oh, that's sweet.
Right.
That's a good reminder to appreciate those little things.
Yeah, even the ones that might drive you crazy sometimes.
Exactly.
And Ford even applies the concept of wabi-sabi to intimacy.
Oh, interesting.
She suggests having wabi-sabi sex.
Wabi-sabi sex.
Yeah, which is all about letting go of expectations and just enjoying the experience of being close to your partner.
So it's not about performance.
Right. It's about connection.
I like that.
And, speaking of enjoying yourself, Ford emphasizes the importance of cultivating pleasure in your life.
Pleasure.
Yeah. It's not just about your partner's happiness.
Right.
It's also about nurturing your own sense of joy and well-being.
So self-care is important too.
Totally. Because you can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Exactly.
And when you take care of yourself, you can show up more fully in your relationships.
I agree with that.
She even suggests creating like a pleasure recipe.
A pleasure recipe.
Yeah, by incorporating activities that bring you joy into your daily routine.
So like taking a bath, reading a book, going for a walk.
Yeah, whatever makes you feel good.
It's about making time for yourself.
And don't forget about novelty. Trying new things together can help to keep the spark alive in a relationship.
Oh, for sure.
She brings up Dr. Fisher's research again about how engaging in new experiences can boost those feel-good hormones.
So it's like giving your relationship a shot of adrenaline.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy.
Right.
It could be as simple as trying a new restaurant or taking a different route on your walk.
Or learning a new skill together.
Yeah. Anything that gets you out of your routine.
I like that.
And you know what? Ford even suggests incorporating a little bit of the fear factor.
Fear factor, like scary movies.
Yeah. Or roller coasters or anything that gets your heart racing.
I can see that.
It's about stepping outside of your comfort zones together.
And having those shared experiences that you can bond over.
Exactly. Even if you're screaming your heads off.
It's true. Sometimes those scary moments can actually bring you closer.
And speaking of vulnerability, that really is a central theme in Ford's book.
Yeah. It keeps coming up.
Because it's the foundation for true intimacy.
It's about being seen fully and authentically by your partner.
Right. It's about letting down your guard and allowing yourself to be loved even with all your imperfections.
That can be scary.
It can. But Ford shares some great insights from Brené Brown.
Oh, I love Brené Brown.
Me too. She's done so much research on vulnerability.
And she's so eloquent.
I know, right? And Brown actually defines vulnerability as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure.
It's about putting yourself out there.
Yeah, even though it's scary.
But she also talks about how it's the key to experiencing true joy and love and connection.
Right. It's like you can't have one without the other.
So how do we cultivate more vulnerability in our relationships?
Well, Ford suggests a few things. First, practice gratitude.
Gratitude.
It helps to shift your focus from what's lacking to what you already have.
So it's about appreciating the good.
Exactly. And that creates more positive and receptive emotional state.
Okay, that makes sense.
Second, set boundaries.
Boundaries are important.
They are. It's about communicating your needs and limits clearly and respectfully.
So you can show up authentically without feeling overwhelmed.
Exactly. And finally, practice forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
Ford explains that forgiveness isn't about condoning hurtful behavior.
Right.
It's about releasing those negative emotions that are keeping you stuck in the past.
So it's about letting go.
Yeah. And she goes into detail about Ho'oponopono, that Hawaiian forgiveness ritual.
Oh yeah, where you repeat those phrases.
Like, I love you, please forgive me, I'm sorry, thank you.
It's a powerful practice.
It is. And it's about taking responsibility for your own perceptions and reactions.
And choosing to see things from a more loving perspective.
Exactly. And Ford also reminds us that those small acts of love and kindness can go a long way.
Like what kind of things?
Like a handwritten note, a thoughtful gift, or just taking the time to really listen to your partner.
Those little things can make a big difference.
Totally. It's about being present and attentive and making an effort to show your love and appreciation.
Yeah, those gestures speak volumes.
You do. So much good stuff in this book.
It really is packed with information.
What's resonating with you most?
I think for me, it's how practical Ford's advice is.
Right.
She doesn't just talk about soulmate love in this abstract way.
Yeah.
She gives you actual tools and techniques.
Yeah. You can actually use this stuff.
Exactly.
Like, it's not just about finding the right person.
Mm-hmm.
It's about becoming the right partner.
I like that.
And she reminds us that, our partners aren't trying to annoy us on purpose.
Yeah, sometimes it feels that way, though.
I know, right? But they, just like us, want to feel loved and appreciated.
We all do.
It's true. It's like we all just want to feel seen and understood.
Yeah, and safe.
Yeah. And I think that's a good reminder to approach our relationships with a little more understanding and compassion.
For sure. We all have our quirks.
Our baggage.
Yeah, and those differences, they don't have to be deal breakers.
Yeah.
They can actually be strengths.
Totally. Thinking back to all the tools she talks about, I think I'm most drawn to the communication techniques.
Oh yeah, like what?
Like the Imago dialogue and understanding love languages. It's about learning to really speak each other's language.
Right.
Both literally and figuratively.
Makes sense.
And I also really appreciate how she emphasizes the importance of managing our own emotional state.
Oh yeah, especially when you're feeling triggered.
Oh, yes. Those are the worst times.
Yeah, you gotta have some tools.
Those tools like tapping and the heart lock-in, they can really help us respond with a little more, wisdom and less reactivity.
It's like hitting the pause button before you say something you'll regret.
Yeah. And taking a moment to just breathe and center yourself.
It's not easy though.
No, it takes practice.
But it's so worth it.
And ultimately, it's about taking responsibility for our own emotions and our own behaviors.
Instead of blaming our partner.
Yeah, like expecting them to fix us.
Right.
It's our job to take care of our own stuff.
Exactly. And I think that's really Ford's overall message.
Oh, what's that?
It's about empowerment. We have more control over our relationships than we realize.
Okay.
It's about making conscious choices.
Every day.
To nurture love and connection.
So what does all this mean for you, the listener?
Well, I think the most powerful takeaway from Ford's book is that anyone can be your soulmate.
Okay.
Or you can deepen an existing relationship.
If you're willing to put in the effort.
Exactly. It's not magic.
It's a choice.
Yeah. It's about approaching your relationship with intention, understanding, and a commitment to growth.
Beautiful. And you know what? Real change is possible.
It is.
And it doesn't have to be this grueling, painful process.
Right. It can actually be fun.
Yeah, who doesn't want more joy in their life?
So what one small step can you take today to bring more of that soulmate energy into your relationships?
Ooh, good question. Maybe express some appreciation to your partner.
Yeah. Or try one of those communication techniques we talked about.
Or just commit to being a little more present and mindful in your interactions.
It all starts with awareness.
Well said.
The power to transform your relationship is in your hands.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into soulmate relationships.
I hope you enjoyed it.
We'd love to hear your thoughts and takeaways.
So leave a comment below.
And until next time, keep diving deep, keep exploring, and keep choosing love.
Bye, everyone.